6. Man Toga, SRS runway, auto thrust is blue. 80 knots, thrust set. 6500. 31. Rotate.
Well, hello guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Man, it almost feels like a reunion type stream because it's been such a long time since I've been able to get back with you guys. Good to see everybody here in the chat. Mrs. Jungles, Carta Jawol, Dougal McTavish, Cosmic the Balloon, all my mods showing up. Good to see you guys. Christian, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Sam, good to see you as well. Team Vodka. Dylan, what's going on? Jack Mackey, shout out guys, Jeremy Harvey for those new tunes. Man, how about that music, man? I was originally going to be the 20K subtone, but at the rate I'm putting out content, it'd take about another 4.5 years. So I just figured, why not? We surpassed 18K. Let's rock with some new music. It was pretty sweet, man. I love it. Good stuff, guys. Well, today we are finally back in a live event, and I'm glad to be here, guys. Thank you for your patience. It's been an absolutely crazy couple weeks between weather and work and family issues, and it's all right. We're back at it now. We're in the A300-600 SuperTransport Beluga. I put a poll up for this video, or just for some content to kind of gauge the interest within the V1 community, and you guys seem very interested, so I'm glad, because there is a lot of niche things about this airplane that I've been trying to educate myself on as well. Now, I&I Builds was courteous enough to include me on their pre-release stuff or whatever, their pre-release team, or their, what do they call it, content creators. But just been so busy I wasn't able to get any content out before it actually released. So hopefully you guys have been flying it around the last couple days anyway, since this airplane is available, and I believe you do get a discount if you have an A300, if you're an A300 owner as well. So, I was faced with the task of, like, everybody's already streamed this airplane, right? We've seen it go from A to B. We've seen the incredible cargo loading. So I thought, how can I do something a little bit different? And what I've decided to do today is something that I like to do whenever I get a new airplane that is very unique, whether it be a 727 or the Concorde or some type of high-wing doughjet, something like that. I put it through a flight test, quote unquote. And the flight test that we're going to do today is, goodness gracious, Rob C. coming in with a $200 donation. Rob, you're unbelievable, my man. Guys, positive rates in chat if you're a member on the channel. Thank you, Rob, for an incredibly generous donation, $200. That is, man, that's awesome. I really appreciate it, Rob. Thank you so much, dude. I don't see any message with your donation, but very generous of you, sir. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, really appreciate it, man. So let me get my, where was I going here with my, I got sidetracked, Rob being so generous. I really appreciate that, Rob. Glad you're enjoying the content, man. So, like I said, we're going to do a flight test today. Now, this isn't a super, what we call, like, you know, like you think PMDG level or a study level sim. INI prides himself on what's called on-the-line systems. And we're going to go through some basic stuff. We're going to take off. We're doing a high-density altitude, high-temperature test flight today. We're in Tucson, Arizona. We're in the high desert. It's 46 Celsius outside, so it's almost 115 degrees. We're going to take off. We're going to do some steep turns. We're going to do 2 stalls. I want to see how this airplane stalls, because when I look at this airplane, I can't imagine the aerodynamic properties that are going on behind this thing here. And we're going to talk about the vertical stab and why we have these little extra tails here on the side. Can't remember that. I think there's a technical term for this type of tail design. Maybe one of you guys in chat know what it is. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But they're just looking at this airplane, I can imagine there are some maneuvers that are strictly prohibited for, you know, just it wouldn't fly. So we're going to do some basic stalls, and then we're going to do some steep turns, and then we're going to do an RNAV arrival, and I'm going to show you guys how we do an RNAV arrival without VNAV. So this airplane does not have VNAV, or does not have a profile descent mode. And I think partially that has to do with the absurd amount of drag that this airplane has. When you do a level change or you start doing idle descents in this airplane, it drops like a rock. So I don't know if that's a safety issue or why they decided to not do it. And I think it also must have to do with the A310. It's basically things that's an A310 performance-wise. When you have to talk about profile and cost index, like you don't have cost indexes, you don't have any of that because it's the airplane systems think it's a different airplane than it is aerodynamically. So we're going to do an RNAV approach. We're actually going to do a go-around, and then if we have time, we're going to do something fun. We're going to shut down an engine, and we're going to try to land this puppy single engine. I know 99.9% of you are never going to do that, but when you have an airplane that is this unique, I feel like I just got to do something away from the norm. I mean, we've seen, if you guys really want to see the incredible details in the cargo loading, we're going to load some cargo too, but Flight Deck to Sim did a fantastic stream where he almost did kind of like a storybook stream where he pretended he was the load master. You walk up, you go through all the stairs, and the amount of detail is incredible in this airplane. So if you want to see that, check out his stream. He did a fantastic job with that. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to fly it around. We're going to see what the flight dynamics are like, and I'm going to give you guys my impressions of this beautiful bird. So, Coster says, I don't think the thing weighs that much. It just creates a lot of drag. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Coaster. So this airplane actually has a lighter gross weight than the A300. And it's partially because of the amount of drag that I imagine that this creates. So you can't carry a lot of weight, but what you can carry are extremely large loads that are light, such as airplane parts, wings, fuselage, tails. We're going to load up a wing today in our training here. So let's go ahead and get into the cockpit here. We're going to go ahead and start right away with ground services here. We've already got external power on. We're going to load up let's load up some Airbus wings today. We'll request the loader. We're going to go up to the overhead, and there is some differences on the overhead. Some we'll talk about here momentarily. Look at me turning on the, man, how out of practice am I? Turning on the ADRs before turning on the batteries. Get our batteries online, get our external power online. There we go. We'll get that then as an align mode. low pressure supply can come on. We'll come down over here. External power is on. We don't need to shed the galley because we got external power on. We're going to use that GPU for all it's worth. We'll leave the fuel tanks off for now. We'll turn on our nav lights, and we'll leave the overhead as it is. I'm also going to turn on some integral lighting here in the cockpit so we can see what's going on. Sam says, yeah, the McDo is from the A310, exactly. So it has incorrect perf calculations, and that is why when you come over here, you've got your A300-600 card. So this is an actual 3-crew airplane where the flight engineer will be taking the speeds and correcting them to the SuperTransport variant. So there's going to be a little bit of a difference, but that is by design, and it's pretty unique. So you can see here, if you haven't already seen this type of cargo loading, it'll blow your mind. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on this right now because I know a lot of guys have already done this, and I know a lot of you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this. But I mean, just look at the detail. This is something we haven't seen before in X-Plane, and I think I builds are really taking it to a new level, and it is exciting for me because I love the X-Plane platform. I love FS 2022, but I mean, we have so much invested in this platform already that this developer is pushing the sim to new heights already, and we're still on 11.5. And supposedly there is a big, quote-unquote, event or big change coming to X-Plane. I saw somebody posted that in the Discord as well. So, I mean, it's pretty unreal of what INI's already accomplished with this, and I think it's fantastic. So, all right, we got our overhead set up here. We are going to do something down here. This is pretty cool. We've got our... Oh my gosh, ICP. This is the only airplane that has this type of data link system, and I forget what it's called. ICP I something, and it's pretty unique, and it's cool that this is the only airplane that has it, and they actually modeled it. And you can do request company route. So I'm going to load up the company route here that I have from SimBrief, and essentially all it is a... There we go, company route uplink. We're just doing a short flight, Tucson to Phoenix. And why did I pick Tucson to Phoenix? And when I did flight training out there, I was doing a lot of training in Phoenix, Arizona, and they would bring airplanes into Phoenix for high altitude temperature testing. So it's Phoenix on the ground in the summertime, 115 degrees Fahrenheit. We're talking 46, 48, 49 C. So when these new airplanes get developed, I remember specifically seeing E-Jet aircraft come to Phoenix for testing, and they would take them up to the high flight levels where they're really cold, and then bring them back down into the desert where it's super hot, so you can see the stress on the airplane and see how it handles. So that's what we're kind of simulating today in this. We're putting this airplane in the worst conditions. It's super hot, moderately loaded, high density altitude conditions, and I want to see how this airplane flies. It's ACARS. Yeah, I know it's ACARS. There's a specific name for that panel, though. I can't remember what it's called. Team Vodka says, I like to see CSL modeling for the loader. Yeah, me too, man. That would be pretty sweet. All right, so there's our initialization there. What we do have to do is load in our SID. We're not going to fly it too well. We're going to do 1-1 left today, Burrow 4, and then we're going to vector ourselves off of it. So we got 1-1 left, Burrow 4. Then we're going to join the Ping 1 RNAV, which this is going to be a lot of fun because I'm going to show you guys how we used to do VNAV arrivals without VNAV. I mean, I've flown airplanes, a lot of corporate jets that didn't have VNAV, and you just had to manually calculate fix to fix. And I'm going to show you guys how we do that, some little tips on that when we go into Phoenix. But we're going to do a couple maneuvers first. I'm super pumped for this stream, guys. I hope you are too. We got our takeoff speed set there. Okay, so we're going to wait for that. Let's come over here and continue doing our... what's it called? Pre-flight, I guess. Update our weather here. Right now, Tucson is 170 at 7, 10 miles clear. Temperature 19. Oh, we don't want that. The temperature should be super hot. I think I changed it. Oh, you know what? It is. So that's why I changed it manually. I'm running manual configured weather, so we're going to have to manually import that. But that's okay. Airbus fuselage, that's what we got. No, we have Airbus wings is what we have. And fuel on board, we want to take, I believe it's 15-0. Load, payload, and fuel. 30.3 on our CG. We'll send that to the performance. And we're going to do Tucson. Runway is 1-1 left for departure. That gives us our information. Let's pull up the ATIS. We're going to have to manually input our temperature as well. Christian says it's Flight Sim Association that will monitor and control the quality of release add-ons for major platforms. Really interesting. Okay, Christian, I think that's well needed. IDC, thank you. Cyan White, thank you. The IDC. That's what that panel is called. Liquid Snow says I'm behind the video. But thank you, man. I appreciate it. Ventral fins. Yes, ventral fins on the empennage of the aircraft are the. You have almost 3 tails back there, and we'll talk about why that is too. So temperature is 46. Manually enter that, and then I'm going to go back here. Are we ready to load? I think we are here. Let's go back to our ground services, our loader. So he is ready. We're going to go ahead and select load, and I mean, it's still insanely cool to watch this go down, how they load this stuff up on the airplane. John says, I love the RNAV waypoints. Oh, yeah, man. Captain Big Mike says, vertical stabilizers on the horizontal stabilizers are there to assist a main vertical stab due to the height of the addition. Captain Big Mike, exactly. And since we're loading up cargo, is that too loud? I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. We'll talk about that, too. So that's exactly what's going on here, guys. When you have this huge center mass now on this airframe, even though the vertical stab has been enlarged from the A300, it still doesn't have enough authority for directional stability of the airframe. So you have to add 2 additional ventral fins on the empennage to keep that directional stability. Now, what does that tell me? And I'm not an aerodynamic expert, but this is just me and what I know about aerodynamics and how I think this airplane should fly, and we're going to test it, is the way I look at this airplane. You know, some people may think, oh, the CG is up top, and the higher CG can cause it to roll over. Not so much, because if you keep it 1G, everything's going to be... If you keep it 1G, you don't really have to worry about your CG being elevated. However, looking at the profile of this aircraft, I could see uncoordinated flight, such as a side slip, becoming extremely dangerous for the aircraft. Some of you guys that are in training right now, you may practice a side slip to land or a forward slip. Basically what you do is you intentionally cross-coordinate the flight control surfaces. So you can go left aileron and right rudder, and you put the airplane's fuselage directly in the line of travel, so it's right in the stream of air, and you create drag. That's a light general aviation technique that you use to get down in a hurry without increasing your airspeed. I can imagine side slips and uncoordinated flight in the Beluga are probably extremely dangerous to the aircraft. Hence, if we have enough time at the end of this, we're going to try to do a single engine approach and landing just to see how that handles. We're also going to do a steep turn, and you'll see what happens when you get a little bit uncoordinated in a steep turn with this airplane. I think it's a pretty good rendition. Obviously, I've never flown the Beluga, but I like this stuff. I like aerodynamics. I like things that are unique, and that's what we're all about today, is we're testing something out that's a very, very unique. Where did I get the livery? I got the livery just off the INI page. It's just their default primer one. I matched the same one as the photograph that you guys saw at the beginning of the stream, the very first flight of the Beluga. All right. I just got, I got a notification. Somebody became a member, and it sounded like the seatbelt sign. I appreciate that. I didn't see what the name was, but thank you for joining or subscribing to the channel, my friend. Appreciate it. All right. So that has been loaded. We'll go ahead and remove the loader. We'll go ahead and return back. We'll go to our load sheet here. Let's go ahead and pull up our MCDU. And we need to go to our init B page here. We do a couple things. So fuel on board, we've got 15 kilos. One thing that I don't like, but it's real, is this aircraft. There's only 5 of them. They don't have pounds, so they're meant for Airbus to be flying Airbus parts around in Europe. So why do they need to add pounds? So it's just part of the limitation in the sim that we gotta. It's not a limitation of the sim. It's just how they design it. So 15 kilos. Take off gross weight, 0 fuel weight is 98.7. So we are relatively light on this flight. And there's a reason for that too. I don't want to be super heavy in doing all this, because I can imagine at max loads the aircraft's flight envelope is probably significantly limited. Cruise altitude 220 if we even get there. We'll see. So that looks good. We'll go ahead and send to performance. We've already done this. Let's go ahead and compute. Morov says, same reason the AN-225 has an H-tail. The Buran was blocking the airflow. There you go, exactly. So when you increase that, it looks a lot worse than it actually is when you have a huge center load on an airframe. People will get concerned about the CG being elevated, but it's really not so much. That's not so much of a problem because you're meant to keep it in 1G. And now if you start doing aerobatics maneuvers with an airplane like this, you could get problems. But where I see the biggest problem is anytime you're uncoordinated, such as a potential V1 cut or a single engine approach, something like that where you can become uncoordinated, I could see that being detrimental to the aircraft's flight envelope. So we did a flex 50. Oh, we don't want to do flex. No, we don't do flex here. We got to recompute that. Sorry, we only do Toga on this channel. All right, here we go. So we're going to do 1.1 down the trim, flaps 15-0, Toga takeoff, runway 11 left, 113.3 is our takeoff weight, max takeoff weight, performance limited is 150.6, so we got plenty of, we're good to go. We're going to send data, so we're actually going to send it to the FMS, and then we're also going to send it to the card. So the card is what you want to use. All right, and there we go. So that's what the FMS has given us, but we have to look at the card for our actual weights. So we should probably start up the APU. Been sitting here for a while. New sounds too, which I really like. And I'm not going to turn these on until we get the APU fired up. Master on, and let it rip. Linus, what's up, man? Lucas says ISA plus 48. You got it, man. That's why we're doing this. Coming down to Phoenix, Arizona to do some high density altitude, high temperature testing. Engine endurance has left the chat. There's a lot of things that have left the chat with this airplane, man. Now, I know at light loads you can get a decent amount of fuel, but once you start filling up that cargo bay with a heavy load, like I said, it's got a lower gross or max takeoff weight than the standard A300, so your range will become limited with heavy payloads. APU's fired up. Looks like they're closing the door. One other thing, too, that I noticed and I learned, this is the only pressurized door on the airplane, so you got to make sure that's closed or else you won't pressurize. We'll go up here. We'll go through this door. Check this out. We got our wings in here, and you could close all this manually if you want to, but it's closing automatically. I mean, this is unreal. Look at this. This is why people will buy the Beluga, and I think a lot of people are going to have fun with it. I wonder if you can customize the cargo. You know, that would be cool if we could put some V1 emblems on the wings, or like make a V1 fuselage. I think that'd be really cool. And if people, you know, want to do some fictional flying like UPS or something of customized cargo, that would be pretty sweet. Jeremy says, I wonder if the Beluga requires special differences training for... Oh, Jeremy Harvey, you bet it does, man. I'm sure these guys train in the sim extensively for this airplane. And I don't... But see, here's the thing. I don't know. Do you have a sim that can set up for the Beluga, or did they actually go do flight testing? I don't know how that actually worked, but there's only a select few Beluga pilots, I'll tell you that, and I'm sure they have received a lot of specific training to this aircraft. So that's what makes it unique and fun for me, is we're going to see a lot of new nuances about this airplane when we go through some basic maneuvers. Aircraft models, welcome to Commercial Pilot, man. Thank you so much for joining the channel. Exclamation point welcome. For more information on your perks, I just released the V1 After Dark podcast for January, February, so you'll have access to that, plus all the other ones. I've been doing them for about a year now. All right, we'll come back in here. We'll close this pressure door here. Make sure that is closed, or else you will not pressurize. Speaking of pressurization, anybody see anything different over here? APU is on. Let's go ahead, APU bleed. Turn off the external power. We have a pack selector on the Beluga. And the reason for that being is, like I just said, we only have one pressurized compartment. That's the cockpit. 2 packs would be too much pressure in this. It would just be overkill. So you've now have a selector where you can run 1 pack to pressurize the cockpit. It's a very small area. The main cargo compartment is not pressurized. It's just the cockpit there in that little forward galley area. So you can select between pack 1 and pack 2 to keep your aircraft pressurized, and you do have to have that cockpit door shut, or else you would not pressurize at all. Ask me how I found that out. All right, emergency exit lights can come on, and we're on power down. We'll get all this turned on. ATS on. We don't need the dome light, do we? No. We get the nav light is on position 2. That's fine for now. Everything else looks good there. What I do want to do is come down here. We're going to set our EFIS. I'm going to set 250 knots. Whoa. 250 knots here on the speed window. So this is a lot of this, you know, without a profile nav takeoff, a lot of guys get nervous about it, but it's how it used to always be done. You set your top altitude. We're going to climb up to 15,000 feet here initially. Man, I need to get that plug-in where it stops that scroll wheel. 15,000 feet, you want to set runway heading, which I think is 123 on 11 left, and our speed 250 knots. You could also do green dot plus 20, or green dot plus 10, I believe, is another way you could do it. I mean, you can do this in the A320 narrow body as well. You can do a flight direct or off takeoff, just do manual. So there's really no need to be hesitant about this. Just set your altitude, your runway heading, and once we take off, we're going to go right into nav mode if you're on a nav departure. Level change it. You want to make sure you do that, and you also have to make sure you change your TRP down here. And we also want to set our field elevation for landing, which is going to be 1560, I think, right about there. That looks good to me. 1560, that is all set. APU is running. Everything is good. Let me do a look at our speed card over here. 62, 64, 66. This is what we're looking at. SB is 15, and what's our trim setting? 1.1 down. So we'll make sure we set that before takeoff. I think we're ready to go, guys. Let's call for pushback and get out of here. We don't need the fuel truck anymore. We don't need the trucks. We don't need external power. And ground services, pushback.
Ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
How did I find that out, AvGeek? I took off and I blacked out because I stepped away to go get a drink downstairs, and I came back and my airplane, everybody was blacked out. Didn't pressurize, so yeah. Canceled that flight, reset. Yeah, was not a good one there. I thought, and then I started digging around because I thought, what's going on here? Because I think the A300, you have to do an override for the packs if you're doing a high density altitude, and I thought that was the same for the Beluga, but then I started thinking, well, that doesn't make sense because you're only pressurizing the small cockpit area, and I found out it was because the door wasn't shut. So that's a pressure door there. You want to make sure you do have it shut. Let's go through our quick checklist here. Cockpit prep's complete. Fuel quantity is set. Takeoff data is set. Landing elevation has been set. Altimeters are set. Brake anti-skid is normal on. Windows and doors are closed. Beacon will turn that on right now.
Okay. All doors and hatches are closed.
Yes, they are.
Ready to connect.
Ready to connect, and we're going to get ready to push back, guys. All right, 2992 on the altimeters. Let's just make sure I did set that up right. Details here. I'm running just my custom weather for a reason. Here we go. A310 engines, gotta love them. I thought you said V2 on the FCU. Ryan, you can set, so there's a couple different techniques. You could do V2 plus 10, you could do green dot plus 10 or plus 20. This airplane, we're pretty light, and we're having a speed restriction. We're gonna go all the way to 250 at acceleration altitude. So we're gonna climb out at V2 plus 10 until acceleration altitude, which is 1,000 feet for this airport. And then we're going to go right up. So, you know, it would depend on Airbus's specific procedure. That's one of those things where we get in debates about it all the time, and I'll say one thing, and then you got 40 guys saying another thing, and everybody's correct. It just depended on what your procedure is at that airline or how that airplane wants it to operate. I think the A300 has something different that you set there that you're supposed to set, but for this video purposes, we're going to do 250 knots. We're going to get up there pretty quick. Benny, you got the same blackout? Yep. Hello, Niels. What's up, man? Yeah, we just talked about that cabin door. We just talked about it. Christian says, I just saw your message up there, man. We need to customize it so we can load some bourbon barrels. That would be absolutely epic if we can customize the payload so it's a bunch of bourbon barrels. Absolutely. Drunk Mole, what's up? He says, hey, we won a little late, but congrats on 18K. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, we did hit 18K. It's been pretty sweet, man. I haven't been able to put out as much content as I wanted to here, but we're still chugging along. So Tell your friends, tell your family, pass it along. We're streaming. I'm working, let's see, tomorrow and Wednesday, and then I think we're going to have another stream on Thursday and maybe even Friday. So, got a full week planned. I got to get that R&P video out for you. Oh, we also need to come back down here to our IDC, and we want to turn our ACARs, or not our ACARs, our transponder TARA. We'll set that. That looks good. I think we're ready to start, so let's go ahead and, let's see, today is the 8th, so we'll use ignition A for even, and auto pack, here we go, turning engine a 1. New sounds, I love it. Take a listen to this from the cockpit. Av guy says the cabin door is built like a bank safe, and that noise, as it should be, man. That door opens up, you're gonna have some issues.
Go ahead and set the parking brake.
Brake set, clear to disconnect.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
All right, now listen to me. Add fuel. Here we go. Oh yeah. Direct Fubar, thank you, man. I appreciate that. He says it's about quality, not quantity. No channel better than yours, V1. Fubar, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. James Monks, I missed the start. No worries, man. Jeremy says, be very careful with your rotation technique. I wonder if tail strikes were more of a threat with this airplane. That's a good question. I imagine they have definitely trained about it or talked about it. All right, we got a good start on 1. Let's go ahead and fire up engine 2. I kind of hacked an internal engine view right here. I know it's not very realistic, but we'll take a listen to it.
We'll see you next time, and have fun up there.
S. Vatty says, I'm in love with this airplane. I'm quickly falling in love with it too, my friend. FS says, they actually made the first flight livery. Yes, they did. That's why I selected it. You know, that's kind of what the whole vibe of the stream is supposed to be. It's kind of like a first flight or a checkout flight. You know, and this is the livery that the airplane first flew. I believe it's 1994 when they did their first flight in the airplane. I can't imagine the guts those pilots had. I tell you, you walk out to the airplane, you look at this thing on the tarmac, and you think, that thing's going to fly? But sure enough, man. Helps if you add fuel too. We're sitting here motoring at 23%. Liam says, I haven't been able to catch one of your streams recently. I'm happy to have caught this one. Welcome, Liam. Hopefully we'll have a couple more this week too. All right, it sounds like we've got 2 good starts. 2, 4, 6. That's pretty much about right. We'll go ahead and turn that off. Let me come back over here. My overhead's a little dark. Let's turn on some overhead lighting here. Let's go back up top here. All right, make sure everything is good. Let me check out Gen 1, Essential 1, Gen 2. Okay, that looks good. This is in-op, cockpit door, but we do know it is shut. Everything else is on. Fuel is on. Heats are on. All right, we no longer need the APU bleed. We no longer need the APU master. Our fuel is minimal, but we've got it. And 1.1 down on the trim. (15-0) arm U, and I think we're ready to go, guys. After start, pitch trim is set, rotor trim 0, spoilers on, flat slaps 15-0, E-cam status checked, anti-ice as required, hand signal received, after start checklist is complete. Dougal McTavish. Dougal. What is going on, man? He says, hey, thank you so much for your $18 bomb, man. I appreciate it. He says, a huge congrats on 18K, brother. We've missed you. Dougal McTavish, thank you so much for your support, man. Continued support on this channel, from moderation to donation to just being a friend when I need to talk to somebody. So I appreciate it, Dougal. Thank you so much, man. Glad to have you on board, bud. All right, we're going to do our cinematic drive-away view, and then I will turn the volume down. So if you're a headphone user, beware. Here we go. Wasn't too loud there. Jeremy says the factory acceptance flight sounds fun when an airline gets a new airplane. Yeah, it can be fun. It's a special breed to be a test pilot. But so briefly before as we taxi to the runway, we're going to 1-1 left down here. A little bit of a taxi. So why am I going to do this type of flight in this airplane? And I know we talked about it's, you know, I want to do something a little bit different. We've already seen the airplane's been out a few days, got a ton of content creators making the A to B flying, showcasing a lot of the nuances, but there's more to that than why I want to do this flight, and I think you guys might enjoy doing something like this yourself, because when you fly an airplane that is non-traditional, and you could apply this to all airplanes, but once you've been flying enough airplanes over time, you kind of get the hang of it, right? An airplane's an airplane. You push the stick forward, the houses get bigger. You pull it back, the houses get smaller. But when you start flying airplanes that have unique characteristics, sometimes those characteristics are minimal, but they're very important. There's a difference between minimal and important, and it's both when you're flying airplanes. So when you take an airplane to the edge of its envelope, its normal flight envelope, those small nuances, whether it be drag coefficients or the way it yaws or the way it rolls when you get high AOA, those subtle differences now become exaggerated, right? You're at the edge of the envelope, so those small nuances are now big problems or big issues that you compensate for. And once you learn to compensate for those little nuances that are now big issues at the edge of the envelope, when you get back to normal envelope flying, you can really master the airplane because you already know what it's trying to do, even though it's very subtle. And that's a big part of, you know, when you go for a check ride on your PPL. Why do you have to do steep turns? Why do you have to do stalls? Why do you have to do power on stall, power off stall? And it's because you're learning to control the airplane at its limits. That way you master the airplane in its normal operation. That's the same thing we're doing here on this test flight. So, and we're not going to get into some crazy stuff. We're not going to, you know, it's not a full-blown study. I hate to say it's not a study level simulation, because you'll see here at the end of the video where there's a lot modeled on this airplane internally, but it's a very much on the line aircraft, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I think you guys are going to like it. Livery is old? Yeah, man, it's very old. 1994, this livery. Alpha 7, we're going to go all the way down to the end. Hot, hazy day here in Phoenix. Actually, we're in Tucson right now. I always wondered, does this plane use a livery other than the default one? Yeah, so Airbus has, I think it's 5 of them, right? So they have 5 liveries and they have numbers on them. And now they got the Beluga XL coming out, so, or that is out. I think, Dougal, I saw your comment earlier. He said it looks like a pregnant guppy. I couldn't agree more, man. We'll take Alpha 4 there at the end. So there's Alpha 6. We can't take Alpha 5. Limited to 70,000 pounds or less. So we can't take that taxiway. Anyone knows the lift to drag ratio on this thing? I do not know, but I can tell you it's up there. Dynasty 001 says, just like how the Max feels lighter than the NG when near stall, hence the MCAS to maintain that feel. There you go, man. That's exactly why. And that's I did it with the 727 when I first got the 727 on X-Plane. I did it with the Concorde. And I think it's fun if you're getting an airplane that is different, go up and do some, don't be crazy, don't be unrealistic. Do some realistic maneuvers in the airplane at the edge of its envelope, and you'll really see the quirks of that airplane. Alright, there's Alpha 4. I'm going to hide the yoke here by hitting that switch. We're also going to turn on terrain mode. Before takeoff, flight controls check, flight instruments check, briefing is confirmed. V1, VR, V2 with no flex, slats are 15, 0. Takeoff config is normal. TCAS TAR auto brake is maximum. Ignition is not required. So let's go ahead and light it up. 123 on the runway heading, right? Let's see. 124 on the heading. We're going to go into nav mode anyway. Neil says, I did a month of beta testing in this airplane, and I'm even curious about this flight. It's, you know, I've never flown the Beluga, but my suspicions just looking at it and assuming how it would fly, I'm actually very impressed. So, and I'll show you guys that as soon as we get up there. That was a pretty terrible lineup, huh? Alright, runway heading checks. Let's go, let's see, nav blue, spool it up to 50%. Our little Toga button is hidden right here on the control panel. Alright, there we go. Thrust SRS, nav, forward on the stick. Hold on to your seats. Listen to those engines roaring to life. It's an interesting noise. I think it's noise in my throttle. 80 knots thrust set. Neutralize that pressure by 100 knots. And we are ripping down this runway. V1, rotate. Nice and smooth. Oh yeah, positive rate. Gear up. Fly by. Oh, right over the PFD display. Look at that. Oh. That was pretty cool. Alright, approaching 1,000 feet. We're going to go a level change. Climb thrust. And we are in nav mode. I'm going to go autopilot 1 just so we can get some nice outside shots here. That is pretty sweet. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do heading select 270. And since this is a test flight, this is the equivalent of what the United pilots did. MCT thrust. Oh, it didn't change it very much from climb. It's too hot. Basically climb 1, increase thrust. But we're going to do MCT so we can get up to our altitude here for our maneuvers. And flap 0. Bring them in. I know this is a hack view here, but it's still cool to see that wing and the slats pulling in. It's hot. I mean, remember, guys, it is 48 C outside. So we are really putting this airplane in some interesting weather. Let's do another flyby. That sounded really good, didn't it? Man. That just does not look like it should fly. It's so unique looking. I love it, man. What I think my favorite part of the Beluga externally is how they lowered the cockpit. This little chin thing right here, I just think that makes it look so cool. Alright, let's pay attention to what we're doing. There's 9.4. We're getting ready to go out of 10,000. Let's go ahead and turn off our external lights here. And everything is good. We are pressurizing. That is good. We don't want to black out. Let's make a right turn. Let's make it 290 on the heading. We're going to 15,000 feet. We're going to stay at 250 knots for our first set of maneuvers. Disarm the spoilers. Make sure I did that. There we go. Let's look at our after takeoff checklist here. Slat, slap, strike, landing gear. Oh, we got to put it in neutral. Make sure the packs are on and altimeters are set. So landing gear, back to neutral. There we go. Forgot that. And we'll drop it down to climb thrust now. Oh, so there you go. You see how it changes? So 100.7 N1 is your thrust limit. You go to MCT, which, if it's go-home day, there's nothing wrong with MCT except you're burning more gas. It's maximum continuous thrust, so nothing wrong with running 108.6. In the Embraer, we called that Climb 1. Jeremy says the wing textures are so good. I agree, man. I love the wing textures. It seems so Russian. Alright, there's 15,000. Let's go ahead and drop it back down to climb, thrust, max. I'm going to let the airplane stabilize. I'm going to let it trim itself out. And then we're going to get into our first set of maneuvers. We're going to do a couple of steep turns. And I did them so I had an idea just one time before. And I'll tell you guys right now, I'm absolutely terrible at it. You know, it's not like an Airbus. I got to get my stick and rudder skills back. But this airplane, what I've noticed, and it makes sense, is once I get past 30 degrees of bank, the amount of back pressure or nose-up attitude that's required to maintain level is substantially more than the Airbus, like the narrow body or something I'm used to. So in the A320, if you hold this little square just right at the bottom of that, what is that, 2.5 degrees, it'll pretty much maintain level flight in that steep turn. This airplane, I got to be almost a little bit above it. Also, one other thing very unique, once you get to 45 degrees angle of bank, and you go just past that to 46, the airplane has a tendency to drop its nose. And I mean, I think that vertical component of lift just starts having an issue. So let me go ahead and disconnect the autopilot here. We're pretty much level thrust. Okay, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to go flight path vector on, just so I have a flight path vector. And we're going to go ahead and roll into the left here. So let's roll it in. A little bit of nose up pitch. I'm going to let the auto thrust handle it right here. So we go, things are pretty good. There we go, look at this back pressure. That pitch attitude to maintain level flight is significantly higher than what I'm used to. And we're dropping altitude there a little bit. So my PFD, oh, you know what's messing me up? I was looking at my PFD, it wasn't updating as fast as the regular altimeter. So there we go, let's get back up to 15 thou. There it is, then we'll lower that nose. And I just went into thrust lock. Wow, okay, so I'm gonna go manual thrust. That's me, manual thrust. Wow. So thrust lock, if you guys fly the narrow body, you're probably familiar with that. It's an early version of stall protection or alpha floor that we see in the narrow body Airbus when I did our check ride video. So the airplane predicted, once I got a little bit past 45 degrees angle of bank and I tried to pull up to get back to altitude, it predicted that we were going to get into a high AOA situation and went to thrust lock and moved the thrust levers to Toga. So I don't know how true that is to the real aircraft, but my assumption would be that this type of profile on the airplane, once you start getting past 45 degrees angle of bank, that vertical component of lift is getting very hard to maintain. So, all right, so we're going to rebuild the automation here. We're going to go auto thrust on 250 knots. We're going to go autopilot back on, and let's just level change this back down to 15,000. We're going to come back to our heading. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to leave the autopilot on, and I'm just going to turn auto thrust off, and we're going to see what happens as it slows down. So we're turning back to 270. I've got auto thrust off. Autopilot is on. And we should be out star here. There we go. Or it's already in altitude capture mode, so there we go. All right, so we're going to let the airplane slow. We're going to see what happens here in a stall. Is the PFD screen day simulated in this aircraft? So, Sprisk, I didn't know if that was accurate or not, but it sure is. If you pay attention to the altimeter here and the altimeter here, that's kind of what messed me up on that initial steep turn when I entered in. I rolled in, I'm like, oh, I'm holding 15, but I wasn't. My altitude over here was actually going down a couple hundred feet. So if that is true, that's exactly right. It is modeled correctly. So here we go. We're going to see the airplane slow down. Remember, the autopilot is on. It's trimming away to maintain level flight. We're going to do a stall recovery here in the clean configuration. Thrust lock. Autopilot off. I have control. Lower the nose. I'm going to get that power back in there. Pitch down. You got to lower that AOA. This is what is crazy to me. I really got to get that nose down. Those engines take a long time to spool up. Once you get out of VLS, now start coming back up nice and slow. Look at that descent rate. Almost 5,000 feet a minute there initially. And now we can come back out of it. And the engines finally get back up to power. Alright, so I've got control of the thrusts. And I really have to be on that trim. When that trim wheel comes all the way back and then you get into that stall configuration, the amount of nose low pitch attitude I have to put on this airplane is double, maybe triple that of a standard narrow body, which that's pretty insane. And we're relatively light, guys. We're not even heavily loaded. Alright, so let's go ahead and come back to 15,000 feet here. Now what we're going to do is I'm just going to lower the landing gear and we're going to do a landing configuration stall. Landing gear down, we'll go flaps 15. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the flight directors on this. Helps if I bring the thrust to idle. SP will go 15, 15. So this is going to be a simulated approach to landing stall, and then we're going to go into a go-around, which is important because we're actually going to do a go-around in Phoenix when we get there. PTUs are going off. Alright, so we're going to leave the flaps there. Struggling to maintain. There's a shaker, recover. Get the thrust up, lower the nose. The spool up time is crazy. My airspeed is out of VLS. Now I can slowly start to recover the aircraft. Look at my VSI, 4,000 feet a minute again. Wait for that reversal, positive rate, gear up, and we're going to climb away. So that is an approach to landing stall, and it is pretty incredible at how much altitude, how much VSI the airplane just starts to peg 4,000 feet, and I'm on it, like I'm expecting a stall. So I can imagine if you stall this airplane when you're not paying attention, it is gnarly. All right, so we're going to go 15. We're going to rebuild our automation. We're going to climb out of this situation. We're going to go auto thrust on. We're going to go heading select. Why can't I? Oh, maybe because I'm too slow. Oh, duh. There we go. Heading select, level change, 15,000. And we're going to resequence ourselves here. We're going to go direct ping. Actually, we're going to continue to spin all the way around as we clean up here. We're going to make sure the airplane's all cleaned up. Let's go ahead and climb up to 200. Level change, 200. Thrust locked it already, wow. There we go, thrust speed. So Lucas, you're absolutely right. So a stall in this airplane is not a good situation that you want to be in. And I can imagine that an aircraft like this, the pilots that are training on it, it has a very narrow envelope of where it wants to remain at all times. And once you get out of that envelope, you can recover it. Like you saw, we can recover that stall, no problem. But if you're low to the ground, I mean, that's an approach to landing stall, right? Let's say you're coming in 1,000 feet and you're not paying attention and that thing sinks. The amount of drag that hits this airplane is incredible. In the narrow body Airbus, just for reference, by the time I get my pitch down at the horizon and maybe just 1 or 2 degrees below the horizon, my airspeed is already increasing, my engines are probably already at Toga, and I'm able to start recovering the aircraft. This airplane, you've got those long spool up times, you've got insane amounts of drag. The recovery is way slower than that of, of a narrow body, which is, and it should be too, but that's just the kind of thing that we talk about, those nuances, right? How does this airplane handle in the worst situation? That way now when I go in and I do a landing, I know what it feels like. I know how those controls get mushy. I know if I'm doing maybe a circle to land approach and I'm doing that steep turn, I know I really got to watch my bank angle, because once I get past 40 degrees of bank, I really got to be careful on that back pressure, and that's when you can get into a bad situation. You got high AOA, your lift vectors are all cockeyed because you're in that steep turn. So that's why we do these maneuvers, and I think it's pretty interesting to see how this airplane handle it. We're going to nav ourselves back up here. We're going to go to the ping intersection. There's 200. Let's go all the way up to 220 since we're climbing. We're doing pretty good here. 220, we're thrust climb, speed 250. We're going to circle it all the way back around. We'll turn off the terrain mode, and we're going to start setting up for an RNAV arrival without VNAV. Rad1 says, are the ailerons still controllable in the stall, or is it very hard to correct a bank? Rad, we're going to talk about that here as I do a single engine when we get back. But when you get very low speeds, the aileron's effectiveness is not that good. And the roll spoilers actually hurt you in this case, because if you're stalling and then you try to steer out of that stall, the roll spoilers on this airplane are just going to destroy any remnants of lift that you think you may have or may recover, and you're going to further worsen your stall. So it's a very small window of opportunity to correct anything. But typically in any stall, even in a light aircraft, you do not want to steer out of it for that same reason. The same applies to a Cessna 172. If you attempt full left aileron and you're stalled, well, what are you doing to that wing over there? That aileron is up acting like a speed brake, essentially. So now you're killing that wing's chance of recovering any lift further, which can make the stall even worse. And you can, if you're uncoordinated, then that's when we start talking about spins. And God help you if you spin a Beluga. I don't think there's any way getting out of that. So I should say effective instead of controllable. There you go. Yeah, Red, they're not very effective. All right, we're going to leave the speed at 250. We're going to go to cruise on the TRP. We're going to turn our landing gear lever to the off position. And now we're going to set up for the RNAV arrival into Phoenix, Arizona. And we're going to do some 3-degree rule and 3-degree path planning for this arrival. So we are on the ping 1. I'm going to load that up here. We're going to land runway 26. We don't need the 10-9. We need the arrival. And we need the ping 1, which is right here. Okay, so again, this airplane does not have a VNAV profile mode, so you got to do everything manually. You can put the altitudes in the box so you have a reminder, but you're going to have to use vertical speed or flight level change. I just demonstrated to you how excessive the amounts of drag are when you start getting a low power. The last thing I want to do in this airplane, personally, if I was flying it, is be at a high rate of descent with idle thrust. You combine high amount of drag with a long spool up time, it's just not a good combination. So I prefer vertical speed. So right now we need to cross at or above 17,000 over ping intersection, and it's also at 270 knots. So I'm going to set 17,000 feet here, and I'm at 22,000 feet. So that's 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15 miles. So 17,000 is where I want to be at or above. I'm at 22,000 feet. What's the difference? 5,000. At 3-degree path, let's say 3, so we would take 5 times 3 is 15. That's 15 miles from ping. I should start down on a 3-degree path. How do I know I'm doing 3 degrees? You can calculate it for feet per minute, or you can use the flight path vector. Wings level, the donut is split. You see that we call it the donut there as the circle on the flight path vector. If you put the top of that tail at the bottom of the horizon, that's right about 3-degree flight path or deck angle. So we're going to use vertical speed in combination with a flight path vector to maintain a constant rate of descent down on this arrival. So we're 17 miles from ping, so I know at 15 miles is when we should start down at a full-blown 3-degree path. I have to increase speed to 270 knots, so I'm going to start doing that now. And because I'm increasing speed, I'm going to just go ahead and start down a little bit early, just a mile or so early. And we're going to start out, let's do 1,300 feet per minute. So vertical speed, and let's see what 1,300 or 1,400 feet per minute does here on our vertical speed. and down to and accelerate to 270 knots. And then once we are well on our way down here, we can start looking at other stuff on the arrival. Spin the Beluga on the next stream. No thank you, man. Yep, rudder in the stall, Sam, absolutely. Alright, so standard 3-degree rule, if I'm at 20,000 feet, I'm 3 miles from ping, so that'd be 369. So at 9 miles, I should be at 20,000 feet. Let's see what happens here. Let's see how we're doing. I can also see I'm right about 3 degrees. I may have to increase that here, though, because I've increased my ground speed a tad. Remember, your vertical deviation is all thinking that you're an A300, so it is off. It's not going to be correct. And you can absolutely use level change. That is the, I would say, elementary way to descend on a VNAV arrival, because no one likes to chop and drop, especially when you get in a commercial aviation. Okay, so there we go. See, I'm behind. I should have been at 20,000 at 9 miles. So what I'm going to do to catch up, I'm just going to go ahead and bump it up. Let's do 1,800 feet per minute. Let's get ourselves stabilized here. Between ping and birdie, we have 17 miles. Let's see where we're going here. We also have to slow down over birdie at 250 knots. Altimeters are 2992. It's pretty standard all the way down, so that's fine. Alright, so I'm going to set a birdie at 13,000. Now let's do some more math here. Let's see if we've caught up or not here. But it's 13,000 or above, so you're okay to be on the high side. You just don't want to be below it. But what we're trying to accomplish here is a constant descent down. We don't want to be chopping and dropping. Okay, so at at 18,000 feet, I will have 5,000 feet to lose. Same as before, 5 times 3 at 15 miles. So at 15 miles, I should be at 18,000 feet. Let's see how we look here. We're at 18.4. We got to be at 15 miles at 18,000. See how we're doing. Then we're going to continue setting up. Look at that. We're about to be right on it. 15 miles, 18,000 feet. I'm on a good 3-degree path for birdie. I can see now that I'm a little bit low on the horizon, so I'm going to just bump this up just a tad. I'm going to drop it. Let's do 1,600. Let's shallow out that descent, because we don't want to be below 13,000 at birdie. If we're a little bit high, that's okay. And I'm also going to start slowing down to 250 knots. But before we do that, we have to continue setting up for the approach, believe it or not. So this is where things get really busy. ILS 26. The ICP is where we set all of our courses, 111.75 and 258. So we'll come back down here. 111.75 course is 258. Doesn't matter if you put it in the left or the right side. 258 is set. Okay, so that's good. We're going to do our ILS on. ILS is on. And let's go ahead and double check where we are. So at 16,000 feet, that's 3 to lose. 9 miles, I should be at 16,000. So there's 9, I'm 16.4. So I got a little bit high there, but I have to slow down as well. So we're going to come back 250. But that's the good thing, we got drag. And we'll go back up to 1,800. So right now that 1,800 feet per minute seems to be doing pretty good for our descent path here on the VNAV. I'm not even going to touch the speed brakes because this airplane's got so much drag. Look at the speed already working back here. The thrust hasn't even come back too far. Alright, we also have to set up our 1385, which is 250. So we're going to set our buff over here. If you've been around the channel for a while, you may know why I'm calling it the buff. So that's 250 knots. And decision height, I don't know the technique with this. I don't know if you're supposed to set this or not, but I'm going to do it anyway. 250 knots there. And that is good. Takeoff approach. We're going to come over here. MDA is 1385 there. We don't want to activate yet. We're going to move this to landing. Our actual VAP is 131 knots. That's good. How we doing? Okay, 3 miles from birdie, at or above 13,000. We're 14.5, 250 knots. We're on the path. We're on the descent. Everything is looking good. Let's go ahead and run a approach checklist. Signs are set. Briefing complete. ECAM status checked. Altimeters are set. Minimums are set. Ignition, we'll set that to continuous on. Oops, not that one. Continuous relight is set. And we're going to go auto brakes low. All right, at or above 13,000 for birdie. We're over it. 250 knots. We're looking good. We don't want to alt star here, so let's continue coming down to our next restriction is par between 10 and 12. I'm going to just go ahead and set 10,000. And we're going to keep coming down. Isn't the yellow line on the PFD showing you when it reaches the desired altitude? Nevada rocks. Yes, but that Nevada line is that yellow line is incorrect because it thinks it's an A300 or an A310, excuse me. It does not know what its actual drag is. That's why you have to. That's why you don't have a profile descent mode in this aircraft. So you have to do it manually. All right. So if I want to cross par at 10,000 and I'm at 12,000, that's 2,000 feet times 3 be 6 miles. So 6 miles from par, I should be at 12,000. How we doing? 6.3, 6.2. 6 miles. I'm 12.1. I'm just a tad high, but that's okay. We're also going to start slowing up to 230 knots right now. About 5 miles every 20 knots or so below 10,000 feet. Seems to be working out okay for me. So 230 knots is coming back down. We're getting ready to go through 10,000 feet. Let's do a flyby shot here. Oh, no, so the banana line does work, really. Okay. Well, that would make life a lot easier then, wouldn't it? We'll keep tracking down the way we're doing, though. We can see we're looking good just past par. We should be fine. Let's see what we do here. We're planning to cross 10,000, 1.6. We also want to keep that descent going. Oh, go back to vertical speed mode. Don't want to go outstar. Perky's at 8,000, so I'm going to set 8. Look at that, 10,000 feet right now, and we're right over par. So we are right on a perfect path right now. So this is still, I don't know, maybe it's delayed? I don't know. I know you can use the, I guess you call it the banana. I like that name. Let's go ahead and turn on the lights. I didn't know that that was accurate for this aircraft. All right, we do not want to descend below 8,000 at Perky, but we are going to have a significant speed reduction to 210 knots, and we're going to have to start getting our flaps and slats out. The airplane, if you fly the A300 a lot, you know that the flaps and slats do extend relatively slow, so you want to be ready for that. We can shallow that out. See, now that I'm slow, I can go ahead and change that, get our tail back up under the horizon line. So yeah, you can barely see that now that we've slowed to 230 knots. Of course, our ground speed changes, so we're going to have to decrease our rate of descent. We might hit Perky a little, or we might go outstar there. Yep, we just went outstar. We're going to level at 8. That's okay, but we're going to go to 210 knots before the engines spool all the way up. You called it the banana in the CRJ2 Phantom? Nice. Let's go ahead and extend slats. Alright, so after Perk, the last one is Fine App. We're at 210 knots. We want to cross it at between 5 and 6. I'm going to set the bottom at 5,000 feet. I'm at 8,000 feet, so that's 3,000 feet to lose. 3 times 3 is 9 miles. This airway is 11.7, so I can stay here at 8,000 momentarily. So I bottomed out just a tad early on this one. And that's because we slowed down and I kept that descent rate up. And what happens when your ground speed gets decreased, that flight path vector is going to drop. Your flight path angle is going to increase. So you want to dial that vertical speed back, keep that tail right on the horizon. So we're 12.3 from FinApp now. Hudson, there you go. That makes sense because it's a fixed descent rate in the vertical speed mode. Drag should not be a factor in calculating the banana. Just look at that. See, I'm even learning things. I just like to make things more difficult. That's all. We're going to go ahead and set up 1,300 feet per minute descent right there. Here comes 9 miles, and vertical speed is down. Here we go. I kind of like this livery, I'm not going to lie. This all gray livery right here. You don't even know what the official name is for it, only heard banana. That's so funny. I've never called it the banana. I guess... Oh, did we capture the Loke? Oh, we captured the Loke already. Okay, so we're going to sequence it up. That's my fault. Wait, how did we Loke star? Did I press... We Loke started already? Okay. I'm gonna fix that. Let's redirect this here. Let's go Jaggle or Jaggle. I'm gonna go insert nav to Jaggle. I'm gonna activate final approach. Jaggle is at 4,000. We're gonna set 4,000 feet. So that's why you live and die by the FMA there. It actually captured Loke Star and it started to intercept the localizer. I don't want to do that yet. I want to stay on the RNAV arrival. So good thing we caught it. So now we got to cross Jaggle at or above 4,000 feet. We're at 6,246 miles, and we're looking good here. So we'll keep it coming down, but I do want to start slowing up. We're going to drop it back to 180, and we're going to start dirtying up the airplane. Let's take a look at our speeds here. On the card, VAP 131. That'll work for me. 30-40 landing. We're flat. Our auto brakes are low. Actually, no, we're going to do auto brakes off. We're going to do manual braking on this one. CRJ stream next Tuesday, Christian? Ooh, maybe. Phantom, I'm going to need some CRJ crash course type rating, man, when they drop that CRJ, for sure. What's going on, Slam Cannon? Welcome to the stream, dude. You should get the Orca livery. That way it can look like a giant flying... Carter, I think I have the one with the eyeball on the side. FS Flight. Thank you, man. He says, I pressed the VL button. Oh, that's what I did. I meant to, yeah. I meant to click here, and I pressed the low capture. That's why it started up. That's right. We're going to do it now. So here we go. We're going to go Loke. Altitude of Loke Blue. $15.15 on the flaps. There we go. All right, so we're going to go Alt-Star here at 4,000 feet. That's fine. We're going to say our clearance is maintained 4 till established. Cleared ILS approach runway 26 into Phoenix. So Loke is armed. Here comes localizer live, Loke Star. We should be getting a glide slope star here momentarily. Oh, I didn't have the land button. There we go. I caught it. Whew. Whew. I confused those. That's VOR Loke. Land is the equivalent of the approach push button in the Airbus. So this will get your vertical and lateral navigation. I had VL. I should have known by my FNA. See, I died by my FMA. Now we're a little bit behind the curve. That's okay. Gear down. Start dialing the speed back. What do we got here for, what was it, 143. That's okay. That's one good thing about this airplane. If you think you're a little bit high and fast, the amount of drag she's got, not a problem. Still catching up to that glide slope. There it is. Coming back to 143 knots. Go around altitude. Let's look at the chart here. Is going around 5,000 feet, so we'll set 5,000. Let's hand fly, shall we? Autopilot's off. Continuous relight is on. It seems a little bit fast. Paper one, not the FMS 131. Did I read it wrong? Thanks. That looks better. I was like, what? That seems way too fast. I could just tell because we were doing those stalls, right? I was looking at my decking. I'm like, no, we're too fast. We got too much lift. There we go. Now she's settling in. I'm getting a little bit low there, correcting. All right, so we're actually going to go around on this landing. We're going to balk this landing, and we're going to do an intentional go around. We're through 1,000 feet, stable, clear to land, gears down, 3 green. Oh yeah. Toga, thrust panel. Also get my little button primed up here. We're looking good. Through minimums. Landing. 2 whites, 2 reds. Beluga 1, go around. Oh, look at that. 56 feet per minute. Going around Beluga 1. Positive rate. Gear up. Beluga 1's on the go around. That speed there because the gear is up. There we go. Get her up there. Wait for 1,000 feet acceleration now to 2,300. There we go. Level change. 250. Lower that nose. She handles the go around pretty good. It's just that initial pitch up you got to be real careful with. We're good. Tracked 1 stage there, and we're nav because we're nav tracking the go around. We'll go autopilot 1. And how we doing? We're looking good. We are on the go around for Beluga 1. Whoo! We'll let her clean up. We'll fly outbound, and then we're gonna have some fun. I just flew over your in-laws house, Daniel. Awesome, man. Awesome. So she handled that go around perfectly. And that was a butter too. We should have stuck with it there. Let's go ahead and get those flaps and slats in. Yeah, too buttery. Can't have that, Niels. Aaron says I found it shockingly easy to land. If you're at the right speed, you know, she handles really well. It's not, like I said, if you're in that normal flight envelope, she handles really well. You don't really have much to worry about with that big center bump on the top because you've got those ventral fins for your directional stability, and your CG, as long as you're maintaining a 1G in your coordinated flight, you really don't have much to worry about. It's just more of an interesting visual, I think. I think it looks a lot worse than it is. Now, when you start going asymmetrical, that's when you can have issues, and that's what we're going to try to mess with now. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to set up the secondary as we continue to fly outbound here. I'm going to go secondary flight plan. I'm going to go Phoenix to Phoenix, and I think the A300 guys actually recommend that you do stuff in the secondary instead of trying to do it in the primary. Return there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the same ILS for 2.6 insert from Jagel. That looks good. And now we're going to go secondary one more time. Now we're actually going to go heading mode here. I like how you can push it and resync it. Let's go outbound. Whoa. Secondary. Activate secondary. So now I've got the ILS in the box. We're going to continue outbound on 040 heading. And now we're going to have some fun, guys. Maintain 240 knots. Everything else is the same. We're on basically an extended downwind. 070. Did we even touch the ground? It was a butter. So now if we crash and die, it's on me. Okay, so 99.99% of simmers are probably never going to do what I'm about to do next. And the only reason I am doing this is because logically thinking about aerodynamics in my mind, the way the airplane handles makes sense when we shut off this engine. We're going to shut down an engine. This is not a failure simulator airplane. This is on the line. Like I said, 99.9% of the guys are never going to do this. But what I've found that's really interesting is we're going to get I'm going to shut down engine 1. We're going to have to do our hydraulic backup procedure. We're going to have to manually turn on the PTU to get our hydraulics. And the directional control of the airplane is going to be really dependent upon use of the rudders. It's almost like if you guys fly the F-14, using the rudder is what's going to keep you upright in this situation here, especially before you get that hydraulic procedure configured. So let's go here. We're going to go systems. Engines, excuse me, failures, engine 1 fire, and let's do it at exact speed, and we'll do, let's see, we're doing 240 knots, we'll do 200, let's do 220 knots there, so we'll slow down a little bit and it'll happen. Okay, apply changes, and let's dial it back to 210. So I found this out the hard way too, just messing around with the airplane, is when you lose engine 1, you're going to lose your blue hydraulics. When you lose your blue hydraulics, the airplane becomes very, very difficult to control. You can still do it with use of the rudders and being very smooth on the flight control surfaces. Also, when you extend your flaps, you're not going to get your slats because they are on the blue system. But if you do your alternate hydraulics problem or alternate hydraulics procedure and get your PTU online, it will actually pressurize the system and it will actually work. So it looks like we just had an engine fire. There it is. Engine 1 is on fire. And we're going to let it's going to spool down. We're going to declare it emergency and all that. So we're going to set 4,000 feet. Vertical speed is down. We got to start coming down here. Engine 1 is spooling back. It's on fire. Now we can't pull the fire handle yet. No fire warning on that or T-handle. But there we go. It just clicked off. Ding. Look at my flight controls. Okay, now I want to show you guys something about this. This is what we're talking about when we talk about depth of modeling and on the line. So here we go. There's our ECAM flight control. System 1, fault. Spoiler 7, spoiler 4+1, fault, off. Look at our hydraulics coming down. So the alternate procedure, we're going to come up here, turn on the PTU. Look, it's pressurizing. Low pumps, let's turn those off. We don't want to burn them up. Crossfeed, we're also going to do that. We want to keep our things balanced in the tank. We've got to make sure we remember to turn it off before landing. All right, let's continue to come right. We got warnings all over the place here. All right, so I'm going to take control of the airplane. Actually, no, she's doing it. She's coming around. All right, yaw damper 1, fault, reset. I don't know where that is yet, because probably should have done that. We're going to clear that out. Flight controls, we know. All right. What we do, look at that. Our hydraulics are back online because we were able to pressurize the blue system. Let's continue to come right now, and we're going to nav us up here. Let's go direct to prune, insert, and nav mode arm, coming around. Yep, Neil says no failures yet, but I'm doing this to show you guys the handling of the airplane here. We're on fire, we've lost our hydraulics. I was able to repressurize the blue system with the alternate procedure for hydraulics. Maintaining the airplane upright, we talked about coordination, right? All about coordination. You gotta use those rudder pedals to keep the airplane where you want to go. Pack 1 fault with pack 1 off. Okay, so pack selector, we're going to go pack 2 so that you can maintain pressurization on pack in the aircraft even though we're low to the ground. I'm also going to go ahead and start the APU. Losing engine 1, blue hydraulics, we are not going to have thrust reversers either. All right, we need to get down. Let's go ahead and set 3,000. Prune is at 3,000 feet. Coming down to 3,000. I'm going to keep my speed up here longer because We did those maneuvers. We know the airplane at the edge of its envelope is very slow to recover, and it takes dramatic amounts of flight control inputs, whether it be nose low to get that AOA back down. We do not want to get in a bad situation here, so we're staying a little bit faster. We're keeping our flight control surfaces flying a little bit more margin for error here as we do this. Once everything is set up, which I think it is now, I'm going to go ahead and take control of the airplane. I'm going to actually hand fly this in here. So let me set up my view. I'm going to pop out this, and I will do manual thrust here. Disengage the auto thrust, and we're going to set 131 knots. And I'm going to keep it a little bit faster. I'm going to do 138 right now. I'm going to manually fly this in here. And land. Glide slope blue, loc blue. I'm going to take control of the aircraft. Autopilot off. My aircraft, and we're flying. So I'm going to maintain 3,000, keep it right at that green dot, just a little bit above green dot if I get a little bit more power in here. But this is all about coordination. As I make this turn, I got to be very careful here. Should I make an announcement to reassure the cargo? Yeah. We just don't want to break it, right? Especially if those are bourbon wings. Going for the bourbon livery. Alright, just waiting on that localizer to pick up here. Here comes our glide slope. I'm going to cut the corner just a little bit early, because I know it's going to... I don't have the same mobility as I do with two engines running here, so I'm going to start early using a little bit of rudder. Get that turn coming. We may overshoot a little bit. That's okay. We don't want to overcorrect. Let's go ahead and get flaps 1. Lower that nose, lower the AOA. We're also going to do... Oh my gosh, I got to do the override on the flaps. Jib whiz off on that, because we're not going to do a flaps full landing. Gear down. That's going to really get that drag out there. Really smooth on the controls here. Really smooth on the controls. We overshot that turn just a little bit, but that's okay. I'd rather overshoot a little bit here, single engine, than force a bad decision. And I know this, again, going back to our maneuvers, we did those steep turns. You start doing high bank angles with this airplane, that nose really drops. You know, 15, continue to slow down here. I'm a little bit fast. That's okay. I've got plenty of drag, plenty of drag. Really don't like seeing my EPRs go below 50% here, especially single engine. See, we're 2 whites, 2 reds, so they're not quite coincident with the PAPI and the glide slope. So I'm not overreacting. I'm not chasing the glide slope. I'm visual with the runway. My speed is coming back. We're looking plenty good. Get that N1 back up in there. I know that spool up time takes a while. There we go. We're going to leave our flaps where they are. Doing about 138 knots. We're looking good. 500 feet. We're stable. We're on speed. We're on slope and lope. No auto brakes, no reversers. A little bit low there, a little bit of power, a little bit of power. That rudder in there, don't become uncoordinated adding that power. Got a little bit slower than I like. Oh boy. Get her back over the center line. We got plenty of runway. Plenty of runway. Get her back over the center line. There you go. Idle it out.
5.
Touchdown. Remember, no reversers, no auto brakes, manual brakes. Almost going to my private pilot days using that elevator, aft elevator, to get that drag, roll it out. 60 knots. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Phoenix Sky Harbor via Beluga. I'll take that 154 with an engine on fire. We're going to vacate here. Of course, we call for fire trucks and all of that. And we forgot to turn off our crossfeed on landing. That's on me, but hey, I'll take it. Single pilot and a 3 crew airplane here. flying with the yoke. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sky Harbor. I'm going to come across the runway here. We'll shut it down. We're not going to unload the cargo or anything. You guys have already seen that. Again, if you really want to see some awesome features, highly recommend check out Flight Deck to Sim stream, where he did kind of a storybook stream where he pretended to be the load master and all that. I wanted to do something different today and show you guys the kind of extremes of this airplane. Geo, welcome back to Private Pilot, my friend. Glad to have you back on board, dude. Glad to have you back on board. Alright, we'll go ahead and we'll just park it here. Of course, we'd wait for crash, fire, and rescue. We'll go ahead and set the parking brake. I'm not going to do a full-blown shutdown or anything yet. I want to check out this replay. So let's do the replay mode. I'm going to throw you guys into replay mode here as well. And we're not going to play the sail song just yet, so we'll close that. And let's see here. I kind of want to see that first touchdown. Hopefully we can get it. We're still on fire. Let's back it up. That's on our go-around. I'm asking a lot of X-Plane right now. Is this on a go-around or on our approach? I don't know where we are here. This looks like it is... I think on our first approach. Let's see, where are we at here? No, we're turning back now, so we already went and missed. So let's back it up. Oh, that's the go-around. Okay, there we go. There we go. This is the butter I wanted to see right here. This is the butter I wanted to see. Whew. Alright, now I can finally talk. I know I haven't been super interactive with you guys in chat, but there was a lot of stuff going on, and I just thought it would be kind of neat to show you guys something different here on the Beluga. So Anthony has a question. He says, so what's the verdict V1? Is it worth the money? Anthony Anderson, in my opinion, I think it is absolutely worth the money. Now, the Beluga itself as a whole, like operating, it has its select routes, and it's got its very own niche operation. And there are people that are going to soak that up and absolutely love it, and I think you're going to have an absolute blast with the airplane. There's other people that don't really care about transporting, large cargo or flying on the Beluga routes and whatnot. That's totally fine. But if you want to fly something different, and I don't know how else to explain it other than what I tried to show you guys here on stream today, is that this airplane is very different in how it handles and how it feels. And we got to hopefully see some of that demonstrated today, especially when you start getting out of its envelope or you start introducing too much drag or becoming uncoordinated with that big profile. It's a beast to hand fly. But when you're within that envelope, it flies beautifully. It lands very smooth. It handles well. You just got to stay a little bit ahead of the airplane. But again, if you're high and fast, that's one of the great things about having all that drag, is you can slow it right down. Oh yeah, runway shot here. Here it comes. Look at that. Let's check out this butter here. This one was a butter. Oh, beautiful. Then we do the go around. Let's hear it spool up. Look at that wing flex. In the go around. Tor, what's up, man? He says, hi to you all. Must say I love this plane. I Bills has done a great job. I couldn't agree more, man. And when they talked about doing the Beluga and doing the Beluga right, they extremely hit that perfectly, because having that loading system, and there's a couple of sceneries where you can park the airplane in the hangar and you can load cargo from the hangar. It just, like I said, there's a certain group of pilots in this community that are going to eat up that type of niche market, and they're going to love this airplane. They probably won't fly anything else for a long time. Then there's the other pilots that, in all honesty, I was never super interested in flying Beluga routes. Personally, it's just not my cup of tea. But I am all about flying something different and seeing how how does it work aerodynamically in the sim, and as opposed to how I think it should work. You know, I've never flown the Beluga. And so that's where I was like, man, I really want to get on this airplane and mess around with it. And I'm having a lot of fun. And yeah, I may not fly the traditional Beluga routes, but I'm definitely going to be flying some cargo routes. I'm going to be making some bourbon barrel cargo. We're going to do a random cargo, do some, you know, some air hauler or what have you. So all in all, it is a fantastic airplane. And I has definitely stretched the limitations of the sim and set a new standard, set a new bar for add-ons coming out. And I couldn't be happier, because this is what X-Plane needs. It really is what X-Plane needs. So here we go. I'm going to fast forward us now to our engine failure landing, and we're going to talk about, you know, when I started getting slow there. All right, so here we are. We're on fire. We're setting up. There's the APU spooling up. We'll speed it up here. But just like when I talked about getting uncoordinated with this airplane, once you start slipping that fuselage, the amount of drag becomes almost unbearable, almost uncontrollable. So you really got to be careful. Now, luckily here we're turning into the good engine. It's a good habit or a good practice to never turn into the dead engine. When you guys start doing your multi-engine stuff, you'll do that. And really, that's a lot for props, but jet engines too. You don't want to turn into the dead engine if you can help it. So here I am making that turn. When we kept our speed up, everything was fine. I started getting a little bit slow, and that's when things started getting really mushy. Look at the rudder I'm having to use to maintain coordination. That's where you really got to be careful, because you add thrust. If you add thrust on that right engine or the operating engine, the airplane is going to want to yaw. Once it wants to yaw, you're introducing that fuselage to the slipstream, creating drag, and it may be too much, it may overcome you, and it could put you into the ground. So that's the challenge in flying it with one engine, I believe, and it's definitely modeled. So flaps are coming down. We'll watch this landing. Oops, that's not the tower I wanted. Look at the gear coming down. Love it. We'll get the sail playing in the background. I'm going to leave you guys with this replay, and then I'm going to be getting off out of here. So Commander Jenner, definitely a man of butter. Aaron Hastings says different is a great way to put it. It's rare to get such a different aircraft that is exceptionally developed. You hit the nail on the head there, Aaron Hastings. I know I'm going to have a lot of fun with this airplane. I hope you guys have enjoyed the stream. I know it wasn't too super interactive with chat today, but as you saw on screen, it was very, very busy. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was something different. I'm sure we'll do a few more streams in this airplane, doing some more normal stuff. We won't be shutting down engines, doing stalls or steep turns. But if you just get the airplane today, if you just pick it up and you're not quite sure how it's going to fly, go do what I did today. Go up, do a couple steep turns, do a stall, recover. It doesn't matter if it looks ugly or not. You're just learning how the airplane handles at its extremes so you can master how it handles inside of its own envelope. Here we go. I started to get a little bit slow, starting to get a little uncoordinated, starting to sink. Got to get that power in, got to stay coordinated. Coming in over the threshold. Wow, look at that. That actually looks pretty sick. The straight juice coming out of that engine right there, man. Alright guys, I'm out of here. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Mod sponsors, donors, thank you so much for everything. Thank you, Rob, again. Shout out, huge dono at the beginning of the stream. Really appreciate it, my friend. Until next time, guys, I'm B1. See ya!